Okay. Hello, everyone. I would like to first thank Shafiq Bhai, the press secretary to the chief advisor, who is our special guest and speaker of tonight's show. I'm sure that you may be a little confused at the format today, as you're now being able to see us in a live stream. We have decided to use an actual broadcasting software so that our interactions in X are enhanced. The show tonight is also being broadcasted live in Shumon Kais Bhai's YouTube channel. We are also broadcasting in Fahim Mashtur Bhai's LinkedIn profile. Many of the questions today were submitted in a question format in our Alliance page in X or Twitter, whichever you may want to call it. So all the questions that Farhana and I will be asking Shafiq Bhai today is basically all the questions that every one of you have sent us, and there were thousands of you who actually did send. So if there is any time after our question and answer session, then we will be requesting some of our followers in X to actually come live and ask Shafiq Bhai some questions themselves. But that again is provided Shafiq Bhai has enough time. So anyone in YouTube and LinkedIn who are actually watching this show, it is our earnest request that you kindly join X immediately and follow the Bangladesh America Alliance page. With that, I will ask Farhana, my co-host, to start with her first question. Thanks, Farhana. Take it away. Farhana, you're in mute. Farhana, you're in mute.
I'm not sure why I ended up in mute, but thank you. Thank you, Kausar Bhai, and thank you, Shafiq Bhai, for joining. Thank you to everyone who's joining us from far and wide. We know that Shafiqul Alam is the press secretary to the chief advisor to the interim government of Bangladesh. So my first question to Shafiq Bhai is, we know that you're the bureau chief for the AFP in Bangladesh last year, and then the student-led mass uprising and revolution happened, and the interim government was formed. So we're very curious, why did you agree to join the interim government, and what keeps you in this rather stressful job?
You are right that it's a stressful job. Some days I have to work from 8 a.m. in the morning to 12, and when your boss is such a workaholic, like he works early in the morning, sometimes I get messages from him very early, like at 6 a.m. and some days like at 12 in the midnight. Like it's quite like and you have to be always in the news cycle, and it's tough. I had I knew that this is such a, it would be such a like a 7 days a week and 24 hours job, I wouldn't have taken it. But honestly, I worked at AFP for 20 years, and I thought I should. I was actually looking for opportunities to leave AFP because I thought I have enough of agency journalism. You know, wide service journalism mostly like covers events, covers bigger events and some features. And I was quite tired of doing this kind of like routine stories, like a big disaster, a fire in the garment factories, a bout of extremism, and also like stories about political parties and these things. I thought like Bangladesh needs a bigger picture story, long form journalism, and I think we are missing some of these social trends that I can see when I visit a countryside, when I meet people. I travel a lot across the country. I travel almost every major city and district towns across the country, and I thought I need to write some books or pursue some long form journalism. That's why I was looking for opportunities, and then Professor Yunus told me whether I was interested to join him as his press secretary, and I grabbed it. Although like it cost me, like I was making quite a lot of money at AFP doing moonlighting for all sorts of like economist intelligence is the international crisis group, apart from AFP, and all sorts of consultancy firm, including EY. And I left everything and joined here at 1/4 of my salary. But still, I think this last 7 months was a huge learning curve for me.
Thank you. That's quite a story, but it's quite a patriotic call that you rose to. So we appreciate that you're doing this. So I want to ask one of the questions. So when we collected questions from the public far and wide, we advertised this session. People submitted many questions, and we kind of collected and collated them. The topics varied across different themes that we will cover today. But one of the leading topics, literally by in terms of percentage of questions, was tackling misinformation and showcasing the true story of not just the July Revolution last year in Bangladesh, but ongoing current ground situation. So, we were curious, how is the interim government strengthening Bangladesh's global standing and countering the many false narratives in international media and in diplomacy, given that right now there's nothing short of an information warfare against Bangladesh? So what is, the IG's plan to tackle it?
It's just like I think from the very first day we are like facing this situation. I think it's almost like an emergency situation. Like the amount of misinformation we encounter every day. Like even day before yesterday, there was a huge news in like I went viral. Some people said that I made quite a lot of money through bitcoins. A lot of things are there. But honestly, the main problem here is that the Bangladesh government, the way it is structured, it cannot like face this kind of information warfare. It's impossible. Not even the Bangladesh army. Like the way we like in the government, like there are PR jobs. They usually what they do, they mostly write PR stories like of the meeting minutes of some ministers. And what the press wing actually does is like follows the meeting of the chief advisor, that means the prime minister, and we post those news. That has been the standard practice or like since 1972. But here, like the last few, like since August, what do we see that every day there is a misinformation campaign led by Indian media, led by Indian like the people who are active in X, and also by some of the even so-called respected commentators from India. And there is a massive, like this is a part of a well orchestrated campaign to like prove so many things. One is like that there is a Islamist takeover here. There is a Islamist military takeover here. Yunus is a big Taliban leader, and we are all like a Hizbut Tahrir leader or some sort of this. Like Yunus has been in public life for more than 6 decades, since the mid 60s, and it's still like we are facing this kind of nonsense. So what we did, we obviously are debunking some of this news, and we needed actually to like to debunk some of this news. You need a strong private sector, a strong fact checkers in the country, but that is like completely missing. Like AP does have like 1 or 2 reporters, Boom has 1 or 2 reporters, and some of the local the farms like Rumor Scanner, Fact Check, Fact Watch, like 2 covers, and nobody else have any expertise. We need, honestly, we consulted with BBC. Former BBC journalists who are specialized in this field. They told us that you need at least 200 people to face this onslaught. You cannot like you, every day you have to like combat this misinformation by like doing your own stories, doing strategic communications, and that takes quite a lot of time, a lot of resources. Do you have the resources? And if we want to like create 200 jobs, how you are going to do it? Do we have the mandate? Can the government like all of a sudden announce that, okay, this is a misinformation combating department here? You cannot do it. Like for an interim government, it's quite impossible. For a political government, they can sell the idea to the local people, to the parliament, that we need some sort of wing uh, to combat this menace. But for Bangladesh's interim government, is impossible. Like what we did, we eventually spoke to some of the top international communication firm, some of the top PR firm. They are ready to help, but nobody wants to help pro bono. Like they want to, they like it may cost millions of dollars. But if we spend that kind of money to hire some this kind of firms, like then obviously, like once we leave, then there will be questions how you spend the money, because you are not guaranteed that by hiring these people you can make some dent there. It's quite like it's such a like I think well orchestrated thing, and obviously you know who is behind it. It's millions of dollars. And for Indian newspaper, you may not know, like some of the Indian newspaper sell space to political parties. You can place any news there. They would just sell this, like this is the paid content is everywhere in Times of India, in all the newspaper, in the television station. So you are not sure whether how many guys they are buying space, buying some airtime in some of the Indian newspapers or Indian TV stations. So how you are going to face it? Like for government, like every penny we spend, there has to be an audit of this money. So we are like stuck. Like all we need actually is some help from the local newspaper. Some of the big newspaper, they are not quite capable of it, and we also need some help from some of our like patriotic Bangladeshis who can like fight this information war. But honestly speaking, we are not ready for it, and I think for any future Bangladesh government, this is going to be a big issue. How you combat a misinformation campaign, because misinformation is and it can kill people, it can trigger a riots, it can create the situation like you know what happened to the Rohingya. They were in Bangladesh. Like we are now, we have to take a burden of 1 million Rohingya people because they were the victims of misinformation. And the Professor Yunus made the Munich Security Conference chief, Ambassador Hausman, and he said that unless you combat this menace, like similar, you may face similar problem. There, like some people may create grounds to attack your country. Some people may create grounds to launch a campaign to kick out a elected government. So this is the kind of situation we are now facing, and every day. And also like some of the local groups, they are not helping our cause. Some of them what we feel like that they have some alleged ties with the fallen dictator, like you know the some of the minority group, the way they are uh, reporting the casualties of the recent violence. They are like in some of the cases what we have seen that like someone, a minority, people of minority faith, she committed a suicide or may have been killed by excess drinking of alcohol. Like even they are reporting these cases as cases of minority violence. And if you say that you are wrong, then these people are like raising hue and cry, like Yunus government doesn't believe in freedom of expression. They don't believe in minority rights. There's like so many nonsense out there. But I would say this is a wake up call for everyone, for every Bangladeshi. Like misinformation campaign can kill a lot of people. Misinformation campaign can jeopardize the sovereignty of a nation.
Right.
This is, what happened to Iraq and what happened to the Rohingya. This is we have to be super, we drafted some new people, we are doing our part, but I think we need a massive government department filled with young guys who know how to combat this menace. And do it in all social media platforms, in X, in Instagram, in Facebook, and in whatever form this misinformation are spread.
Right. Thank you for that very detailed explanation of the challenges and ongoing realities. So, one of the issues that a lot of our readers, but also the people who ask questions, basically posed, and then I'll hand it over to Kausar again, is, well, given the situation and the fact that you raised that we need more people, more patriots, more allies of Bangladesh, whether they're Bangladeshi or not. For instance, can they do more? Can the diaspora collaborate better? So the embassies have taken the initiative to organize art exhibitions, discussions, screenings of the July Revolution. Can they do more? Can the embassies perhaps play a more critical role in galvanizing the diaspora to tell the ground truths of Bangladesh?
I think they are doing their part, but again, we were not prepared. And also, like one thing we have witnessed is that some of these, we don't have the kind of diplomatic core or the bureaucracy. They are not as efficient as you see in our neighboring countries. This has been a big issue. Like we have seen the quality of their of our diplomatic of our diplomats have eroded even hugely over the last few decades. I would say they are more eager to be a what a Pinaki said, less Spencer of some of the political parties, rather than uh, try to improve their skills. Like some of the ambassadors, if you just meet them, they are not up to the task. Like if you compare their standard to the standard of a Singaporean diplomat or even a Pakistani diplomat, sometimes and or also Indian or Sri Lankan diplomats, I don't think they have the it's a something that we have seen but again we are trying to organize things through our embassies and but I think we also they are also they don't have the kind of manpower that they need or the kind of budgets they are Bangladesh diplomats are some of the lowest paid diplomats on earth, what we learned. So a lot of issues are there, but again we are trying to hold some of these, especially in India, in New Delhi or in places like Washington, London, Ottawa, and where this information where takes place.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to hand it over to Kausar now.
Okay, Shafiq bhai, I was going to ask you the normal round of questions that people have sent me, but I just wanted to follow up that last thing that you spoke before this one, which is you also had relayed to me this idea that you spoke to some professionals and that you needed somewhere around 200 people. So but again, you said that the IG does not really want to put together a group like that because later on you may have questions. So what do you really think the IG wants to do? Would you want people to come forward with funds, some philanthropic organizations? Maybe we can put some friends together. I don't know. I'm just since we're talking, we're discussing. I thought maybe pose that question to you, and then we'll go to the other ones next. Or would you prefer an organization to come up and but that is funded through philanthropy and help you guys parallelly? I mean, which route would the IG be interested in taking? So maybe they can hear your call
I
today,
think
and maybe people
for
could
fact checking,
come up.
for
Right.
fact, Kasar bhai, for fact checking, the best thing to do is to create some independent fact checking institute in Dhaka, or investing money in top newspaper, like you are investing money in Prothom Alo. Or we need a independent fact checking wing in Prothom Alo. They can do the job. It's better that fact checking is done by independent organization rather than the government. If the government does it, some people may say, okay, this is a propaganda.
Right.
There must be something wrong here, or it's a lies. Government is saying a pack of lies. Like best thing I think for combating this information, this disinformation menace, I think to empower the local newspaper, empowered at local TV, so that every day they can have at least like a fact check at least 10 reports. They're not that there are massive number of uh, like uh, fake news are out there in social media, or in like only one or two or three or four fake news gets viral every day. But if we have like very good newspaper like Daily Star or Prothom Alo or Somokal or Amar Desh, whatever it is, or some TV station like Channel 24 or Jamuna, let's invest there. I even we spoke to some of the foreign like charities. We thought like we even invited them to invest there. Okay, you want to improve the quality of news here, quality of if you want to combat this menace, why don't you invest in creating a separate fact check unit in Prothom Alo or any other independent, or you can create a very like a independent fact checking organization. Like Boom is a good one. AFP does, but AFP, I was in AFP for many years, and we like under my watch, AFP launched like a fact checking unit in Dhaka. Like, but what? How many stories do we fact check? Like 9 or 10 stories a month. It's not enough. Or Boom does like again 2 or 3 stories a week, and others do much less. We need to fact check like 10, 20 news a day. Every day there are some lies being spread, and one of the major source of lies are these YouTubers. Like some of they have like license to say whatever they want, and most of the people now consume news from YouTube. My wife does. Like all my friends just watch what like people like Masood Kamal says, or Golam Mola Roni says, or YouTubers based in other countries say. And these people, like sometimes what they do, they mixes lies with truth, and people tend to think that okay, this is a pure truth, but that is not. And we need to do a lot of fact checking for everything, like commentaries by some YouTubers, like commentaries written in local newspaper, and also some of the like things that get viral in social media every day. And also now new menace is what the Indian media are saying, like news TV station like Republic TV, or even like some of the, we know some people who are doing this, like some of the respected newspaper like Economic Times. Almost every day they have a fake news about Bangladesh. Every day, even we have invited all their journalists to come and see what has actually happened since August 5. They are not interested to come here. They would rather publish lies day after day after day. And that's what's happening. We need investment in local newspaper. We need investment in independent institute, and we need investment in TV station. And we need to do it more. This is one way to protect the citizen from being duped by these people.
But you would also need a greater, numbers in social media, such as X, where they could propagate the truth, right? I mean, you come up with do the actual fact checking, but even we do our small alliance members. We are few. Then you have rumor scanner, and then they're coming up, and the actual truth, we as a habit, we all try to, whatever rumor scanner is coming out with, or one of the others, we keep on sharing those. But I think that's not enough. I think we need more people in X, which I was talking to you in our private discussion, that we need like 50,000, 100,000 people in X who can take that truth and then reshare it. So enough people get
Like
to know
newspaper like Prothom Alo can easily monitor X, Facebook, and they do these things quite smartly. Like you don't
okay,
have to worry. You can always refer to them. You can always check with their fact checking unit and say, okay, guys, what we are like, this news is getting viral here. Would you mind like fact checking it? Is there any
okay,
truth here?
I see, I see. Okay, so then I think we've spoken about that quite some time, and you've clarified your, your ideas about this. So I just want to now go back to the actual questions. So one question, quite that came out in the TV and everywhere was about a couple of days ago, Ajit Doval, the Indian National Security Advisor, he launched an exhibition in Delhi titled Persecution of Minorities in Bangladesh, which displayed desecration of temples, murders of Hindus, alluding to a Hindu genocide. So the foundation at which this exhibition was hosted was actually owned or he's part of that foundation. I think it's called Vivekananda. My pronunciation could be wrong there. So Vivekananda International Foundation, short name VIF.
Vivekananda.
Right, sorry, yes, yes. So when such a high-profile Indian bureaucrat, I mean, he's one of the tops, right? So when he personally, goes and does something, for optics, so and he's trying to legitimize these lies. I mean, the top people within the Indian government, right? So what is Bangladesh's reply or response to something like that?
Now we are talking to them diplomatically, but like this is the this is the situation we have been facing since August. Like they don't want to accept the reality, the post August 5 reality in Dhaka. Like and also like some of the lackeys in Dhaka, they are also like adding fuel to this fire. Like they are like the Hindu, Buddha, Christian Unity Council, like they have done two reports, and both reports are hugely exaggerated, like hugely. These are like full of fake news. In USA, if you have done it, like they would have uh, they would have been prosecuted for like
Defamation lawsuit, right?
propagating these lies.
Yes, yes,
But unfortunately, their reports are being even some of the local newspaper are highlighting their news without questioning the motive, without questioning whether these news are uh, true or false. We fact check uh, all their stories, all their reports, and we found like out of the 23 plus 9, like 32 dates they have reported. Out of them, like only 2 are like suspicious.
right,
Rest have nothing to do with religious violence. But then these people are not changing their reports. These people are
no,
sending their reports to US Senate for hearing. They are sending this report to UK Commons. I think we need to like call them out. We have to say that you are the main source of fake news in the country. We have that's to fight off these menace. We invited all Indian journalists to come here and to visit all the places where these alleged attacks have taken place. We don't
right,
disagree. We say that okay, some attacks did take place, but the way like they were like blown out of proportion. And this is like we have said that okay, this number of attacks have happened, and we have arrested this number of people, and the people who are attacked, we are saying that they will be compensated. There is
right.
no culture of impunity here. We are not like political government.
No,
And
no,
again, like this government, this unity council or some of the Hindu groups, like every time a Hindu dies here, they try to portray that this guy may have been killed in some sort of religious violence. That is what
yeah,
we are witnessing. If you see their reports, very problematic reports, and we have urged them, please correct your reports. And to combat this menace, we even invited international rights group like Human Rights Watch. or Amnesty International, come and you investigate it, whether we are telling the lies or they are like this group is telling the lies. We are quite open. Come, and yes, we invited, and we said that we'll give you visa in just 1 hour. Come and visit and do whatever you want to do. But again, like this information is feeding a very vicious news cycle in India, and now you can see some of the top government officials are now even like going to this uh, exhibition.
So, is there anything like, I mean, can you go to India and like like you said, in the US, right? You can sue somebody. Can't you do that? Can't anybody representative of Bangladesh go to India and sue these people for all these lies? I mean, these newspapers, or can't we do that?
And
I mean,
that
India
like
has much
that will
better.
create another problem, another set of problem, that you are prosecuting a minority group.
Okay, okay.
We
So
are
no,
in a
I think
lose-lose
questions
situation.
do crop up. A lot of people do ask,
I
why?
think like here again, the responsibility is private rights group. Like they would like check all these reports that the Hindu Buddha Christian Council is doing. They are like a private rights group or private newspaper like Prothom Alo or Daily Star or Amar Desh, whatever. They can like investigate each of these, like what Netro has done. Netro did the investigation of the 9 murder that uh, Hindu Buddha Christian Council has like reported, and they found that only 8 out of 9 deaths had nothing to do with religious violence. But has they changed their story? Has they changed their
No.
report? The Hindu Buddha Christian, after this Netro news investigative report, they haven't. They are sticking by these reports. And honestly speaking, we need to think about these things.
Right, because that's again what I was trying to refer to you back to the previous question, that they have, say, maybe 100,000 people, or maybe that I'm saying too much, maybe several thousand people as a bot army that keeps on sharing, this kind of news in social media so that they can control the narrative. Whereas when even if we do the fact checking, and then a few of us are replying back, but this is getting totally depressed way down in the bottom, and everything, all the lies come up, up to the top. So that is a big problem. So anyway, so let's go back to another question that there was another question that so many negative attacks going on throughout Dhaka and Bangladesh. Many incidents are happening. So a lot of people say that, are these actually false flag operations? A few of them, is that a false flag a reality that you have found out through your investigations, or this is actually things that are happening at the at the heat of the moment, something like that?
I think like since all the newspaper now newspaper and TV station have got the freedom to report whatever they want to, like I think they are exaggerating some of these stories. In terms of crime statistics, I would say like in January we really saw some of the like some uptick in violence, but are they like a alarming level? No, I don't think so. We have like a deployed police, military, but honestly speaking, like a police is uh, police confidence is still very low,
I see.
hugely low. We change like a 30 uh, 30,000 police men and officers from Dhaka. We shifted we like transferred them outside Dhaka and brought in new officers and constable here. But still, like their moral is still low, because they have like they are the ones who kill the protesters, and they are
Right.
quite shy. And some of the thing, and honestly, some of the uh, attitudes, like some guys, like some people now know that whatever happens, is not going to open fire at them. So
Right.
that also, I think, one of the factors that contributed to this deteriorating like crime scene. But
The sudden
are they
rise.
like huge number, huge uptick? I don't think so. What we are doing, we are publishing all the data on the police website. Anybody can see whether there is a spike. Like between September and December, the number of murders committed in the country was the lowest in 5 years. Bangladeshi like crime scenes are quite predictable. Like if you see the number of the murders, this is why it's about like 2 in 100,000.
So they've actually gone down.
No. It's like
It's
in September, between September and December last year compared to the last 5 years, they were gone down. Only time like a number of murders spike when government kills a lot of people, like
right.
during September, like August, during July. But otherwise, crime scene in Bangladesh mostly, I think they don't like it. There is a ups and downs. In January, we saw some uptick in the numbers, but we are quite confident they are going to come down in February. We'll publish the February figure very soon. I hope things will stabilize. Bangladeshi society, as far as crime is concerned, is usually predictable society. How many murders would be committed a year? Maybe like 4,000 to 4,500 a year, except the year when government kills a lot of people. So we
Exactly.
know, and when Western embassies talked to us, they said the number of murders in Bangladesh is way below in many other countries. It's 2 in 100,000 or 20, 21, 23, 22 in a million. But in other countries, some of the countries, the alarm bell should when you ring the alarm bell, uh, when the number like shoots like a 200 a million.
Then that's very worrisome. Right. Right.
Worrisome.
So
But I think like the crime rate is like in January that like some of the figures like organized dacoity or theft that has spiked.
So, Shafiq bhai, so you think then the police is doing the best that they can, or they are understaffed? I mean, what's the situation there? I mean, there is a problem. I mean, I feel, or everybody, a lot of people ask this question. So,
They are not
what?
understaffed. No,
They're
they
not
are not
understaffed. So
understaffed. They have low moral.
they have low
They are
moral.
more
This
low moral. Some
actually,
of their officers have been arrested over the murders in July and August. And obviously, some of the crimes that police officers did, like enforced disappearances, massacres, like some police officers are like maybe they're really concerned that their name would also be there among the list of accused.
So, actually, very interestingly, just before I started today's event, one police officer, he messaged me in a very thing. He was saying him and his 200 people, they were like kicked out, and he wanted to reach out to certain people, and I said, look, I really don't know them, so I really can't help you. But so everybody who's being kicked out of the police, right? They're being all. This is all a proper investigation, right? So they check everything. You're checking all the facts, and if you're finding some discrepancies in during the August, or they have some other problems in reality,
Like if there
then
are any specific allegations, like specific evidence against any of the officer, then we take action. Otherwise, no, there is no way we take action. Otherwise, it will like create more problems.
right. So so somebody just coming out and saying, hey, we were kicked out. So it's not, there are you have done the investigation, right? So that.
Yes. In some
So,
cases, we have all the footages of some of these officers opening fire at student, like unarmed student protesters. So some of these, like more than 30 officers have been arrested.
I see. I see. So actually, the last couple of questions in my line, you've actually bunched them together. and you've literally replied, to most of them. So then I'll rephrase one of them. So how is the Operation Devil Hunt? How did that go? And what kind, what result, the result that you expected, did you get that result? And what kind of results were they?
I think like it's uh, we like arrested people, like thousands of them,
Hmm.
and obviously there are some specific allegations against these people. These people are suspect, not that these are innocent. I'm not saying that like we cannot say guilty unless it's a problem, but there are specific allegations against these people, and we are arresting only those people.
Right, right. No,
And
you've been
like it will going to continue. I don't think like maybe there will be some pause during the month of Ramadan, but it depends on the improvement of the crime situation.
right, because at one point, I think this entire week, my wife was even scared of going out of the house because of certain incidents that had occurred, and in YouTube they blasted all over the place. So we're grateful that you're doing this, and I hope it works out. So Shilpa, one last question from me, and then Farhana is going to take over. So the army chief recently he gave a speech, and that was like last week's one of the talk of the town until the student party and all that started becoming the big deal. So what is your personal opinion? I mean, who was he addressing that day? I don't want to go into too much detail, but there's so much speculation around that.
I think we are making mountain out of molehill here. Like he was actually talking to the retired army officers, and this is all about the some things about the BDR carnage.
I,
What happened in and whether like a obviously there are some concern about these cases and about some people being tried. So he was like making some bold statement about these things. This is about like he was making the speech at Rawa, which is the retired armed officers welfare association, where this happened. Like, but then newspaper took the like a TV station telecast it, and it looks like he was talking to the whole nation. But I think it's more about uh, targeting more at the retired armies and the military community, I would say.
I
And
see.
in the
So
process, like he also spoke about some of the like things that is happening here. What we can tell you, like the last 7 months, his act was exemplary. Like
yeah,
he is like he is I think he wants to uphold human rights in the country. He has like uh, has helped this government, and is a, I would say, like a, uh, he is a top army officer who knows what his role is.
right, right. Because a lot of people ask me privately, and I tell them that look, he is the protector of the nation, and he's doing his job to
Yes,
provide
yes.
that protection, and it is the IG's responsibility to bring the reforms. So I think they are working hand in hand, and God bless to all of you who are working to help Bangladesh to get out of this mess. So saying that, I will now hand it back to Farhana for some of her questions now.
Thanks, Kausar. So shifting gears a little bit, Shafiq Bhai. So a lot of the people who submitted their questions online, but then also just generally in the country, there's interest about job creation. So you know that the July the anti-discrimination student movement was largely about the unemployment situation, right? So given
Yes.
the current political landscape and job creation is urgent, so, what specific measures can you tell us that the interim government is taking to challenge the job crisis? Like, for instance, are there any specific policies to increase manpower exports or more infrastructure projects? Or, in many ways, how can linked to that is, are there ways that the Bangladeshi, the non-resident Bangladeshis, the NRB or the diaspora, can further support, and inspire a greater job creation and more economic stability in the country?
I think that's a key priority of this government. And what the IG has done is they have targeted the low hanging fruits. Like we need to target areas where we can get some quick results. Like some of the things I can outline here is that we thought we need to make Chitang port more efficient. Like some of the keys to attracting foreign direct investment lies in improvement and the efficiency of the Chirang port. Like when Professor Yunus met foreign investors, everyone was talking about it. Like if you want to attract if Bangladeshi, the Bangladesh garment factories, they mostly do very basic clothing like t-shirt, pants, shorts, or shirts, this kind of things. They don't add much value. But if you want to uh, do more like a high-end, high fashion stuff, what you need is you need an efficient port system. Like Ki Hak-sun, the young one chief, he said to do high-end fashion, the turnaround time, the moment you get a order and then process it and send it back to a retailer or the brand a Gap or Tommy Hilfiger, you have to do it in 15 days. But honestly, with the kind of Chinang port we have, with the low efficiency, we cannot do it. So Professor Yunus targeted it, and we are talking to a lot of foreign investors. I hope by end of September or October, you will see some results. And if the efficiency of Chirang port improves, there will be a lot of foreign direct investment doing high-end fashion item, high-end fashion in clothing, in leather, even footwear made of clothing. Lot of these things would be there, and already we are getting some results, and obviously part of the process. And we got interest from DP World. DP World is the world's largest port operator, and Abu Dhabi port, they are also quite big. AP Moller Marks, the Danish company, they are quite big. All of them, we have spoken to them. We had a series of meeting with them. And this is one thing. Another thing was the why many a top investor don't want to invest here is one of the reason is the labor standard. Unless you solve this labor problem, some of the issues were there for many years, more than 2 decades. We haven't solved them. One of the thing was to professionals. Priority is to upgrade the labor standard up to ILO standard. Whatever ILO said that this is our standard, we will have to achieve it. And this is another area. If we can fix it, then we are quite sure that even what we have learned from other countries is that there will be a lot of more investment here. And that is going to improve quality of labor here, quality of worker here. They will get better payment, and also quality of living will be good. Some of the even graduates who no longer want to work in garment factories or some of these manufacturing units, I think they will be attracted to work there. That's the two areas. Also for foreign for some of the overseas employment, we Professor Yunus had a series of meeting with Saudi diplomats, UAE diplomats, Malaysian diplomats. We want to create more jobs for Bangladeshis in these countries. Since 2012, UAE has an unofficial ban on Bangladeshi workers. So this time, last month, Professor Yunus went to, I think early this month, he went to UAE to join the Dubai World Government Summits. But the whole idea was to crack open this job market for Bangladesh. And he spoke at the conference for for a half a day, and then the rest of the time he was talking to all the ministers of the UAE. Just we want to open new doors for our workers. And another thing was to like digitalization of our like land deeds, our taxation system, a lot of things for especially for the foreign companies. And we think like if we make sweeping reforms in these areas, more there will be more investment. Like trying to achieve as much as possible given the time, short time we have.
Right.
But again, like I would say, like every day, almost every day, Yunus has a meeting with some of these people, with foreign investor, with some of the bureaucrats, how to improve like quality of services that the government offers. Like he hired a former HSBC banker to lead the BIDA, Bangladesh Investment Development Authority, and he had a meeting with like a like I would say hundreds of CEOs who are based here, and like we get some feedback from them. We try to implement some of the things. The ones that we can do quickly, we are doing it quickly, and one way we are doing it just putting a deadline. Okay, you have to do it now. Like for I would give you one example. There is a Korean EPZ in Chittagong. It's a like 2,500 acre land. But during Sheikh Hasina's time, they didn't get the land record. They were like he like a Kihaksun, the young one chief. He faced like a problems. Like he, we gave him the land to develop it, but eventually didn't give him the land records. Like a no mutation, he didn't give any mutation of his land deed. So we've set up for 25 years he suffered, and he said that some of the top Korean investors like Samsung wanted to invest in his like EPZ, but they pulled back at the last moment because they were not sure whether they will face some problem with the land issue. So we set a deadline at for like February 6th that we have to solve this 25-year-old problem, and it was solved on 6th February. It was like the way like this. The whole idea is to make him attract more investor, make his stay more meaningful, painless, and so that they can be good ambassador, they can attract more investment for Bangladesh. And I think some of these things are paying off. Like for 5 months in a row, exports grew more than 10% a month. And I think that the next few months we'll see further growth.
Right. I think this is something that despite all the challenges that have existed in Bangladesh, the continued growth of exports is a good indication, as is the working in a Bangladesh bank by the governor, right? In terms of foreign reserves, in terms of despite the massive billions of embezzlement by the former regime that was overthrown in August, and the ongoing bureaucracy, the challenges, the kind of internal problems of party loyalty. There's a number of economic challenges. So within that, the unemployment issue exists. So thank you for giving us that kind of wider picture of the issues of how employment will grow across both manufacturing and tertiary industries. So I'll hand it back to Kausar to ask one of our last questions. Kausar, you're on mute.
Yeah, now my mistake. So, Shafiq bhai, one thing I would like to just say before I go into the last question is going back to the disinformation campaign, right? So, the disinformation campaign is at such a high level, obviously through Indian manipulation, that this information is really affecting how policies are being, policies are being actually affected. especially because we are more US aligned, because we have all, whoever are working, we are working together. Majority of us are US expats. So there is a resolution that has passed at the lower house in New Hampshire. And that resolution is totally, it says that how we have, there's been a genocide of Hindu Bangladeshis, blah, blah, blah. And, many people were taken there. We don't know at this moment, allegedly, they were taken there, and 4 people provided evidence that, this thing actually happened. And this has already passed through the lower house. Now it's going to go to the upper house in New Hampshire. So a couple of our team members, especially Trish, she's really working. We already have a group, a separate WhatsApp group that she and another friend of ours, Muniba, they're leading that group, trying to do whatever they can to stop, um, you know, uh, the petition going further, the legislation going further, because the result of this could be very dramatic, because this whatever, if it passes through the upper house, this is going to go to the president, it's going to go to the Secretary of State, and we are hearing that similar resolutions are on the way in other states like Michigan. So this is very alarming for us. So this is something we're just letting you know now. And after the conversation with you, if you still have time, Trish is going to give a very small, a 5 or 10 minute presentation. So if you can stay with us that longer, I think it would be very informative for you. So
Yes,
saying
yes,
that,
I can.
okay, great, thank you. Thank you. So I will ask you now about, because today has been a great day for Bangladesh in the sense of our younger generation. They have just launched their party. It's in English, it's called the National Citizens Party, I believe, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong. In short, it's called the NCP. So I was watching that all day today. It started around 3 o'clock. So what are your thoughts in the formation of the party in terms of who are the leaders of that party? What are your personal feelings about them?
I think it's a very good initiative. We are like seeing the beginning of a new dawn here. I hope the students can really uh, be emerge as a big force in our political landscape.
Mm,
We need new people of new thinking, new ideas. Will some for many years our politics were ossified, I would say. Now they
mm,
are bringing in new ideas, and they were quite successful. They were hugely successful in July and August. They can carry if they can carry the momentum. Obviously, they will be a force to reckon with in our political landscape, political arena.
right. So you think, do they have they created a manifesto as such, or what are their kind of political leaning? Are they centrist, or they're going to have a sort of
They are
leaning
saying
there?
they are
Because
centrist. I think whatever manifesto you have, it doesn't actually matter. Like your character will be displayed out on the streets, or the kind of issues that you grab and want to do activism for. Like it's not that I can have a very progressive manifesto, and that the next day I have taken a issue which is uh, very, I would say, tiny fringe issues, obviously, or illiberal issues.
mm,
It will that you will see their character in the next 6 months in the run up to the elections. I hope they will create new hopes here. And a lot of they have all sorts of people are there, of people from all background are there. I hope they emerge as a big force in our political arena.
thank you for that. So, Farhana, would you like to take the last question
One
from?
one more thing, Kausar bhai, that is one thing we are trying to do, since we know we have this problem with creating big fact check units or fact check agencies. Our the last 6 months, our main uh, task was to be as open as possible. Be as
Yes.
transparent as possible. Look, we are here. You come, you report. We are inviting everyone. We are inviting even some of the top human rights organization come and do the reports. And we also inviting all the embassies to do their own investigations. They can, in limited way, they can also do it. And we're quite confident. The way Professor Yunus is received by all the Western senior leaders, like leaders of Germany, Italy, then USA, they are embracing him. Like obviously, they are not buying the kind of stuff that some of the Indian newspapers are selling. It's not working. And
Of course.
India, we can never win this misinformation war against Indians, because they are everywhere in the Western society. They have
Very true.
penetrated every layers of Indian society. They are in the top universities. They are in the like in the governments. They are in the policy making organization. They are in think tanks. They are in the business bodies. Everywhere. They are the CEOs, the mid managers, everywhere. So how do you see, like our best weapon to be is, we have to be open, transparent, and we have to be embracing. We have to extend our hands and come and see, this is our country, and you can do report whatever you want.
Right. I even personally invited some of these people. I said, look, you come, you fly to Bangladesh, I'll put you up at a five-star hotel at my expenses, and I'll take you around wherever you want. But none of them have taken up on my offer, not even one. It's zero. So I understand what
Yes.
you're saying there. So
No,
we,
people like some of the Indians who went to Harvard, they
right.
also like propagate this like genocide,
Right.
like
My daughter last year,
nonsense.
she graduated from Columbia Masters, okay? And some of her best friends became Indians. And she just, 2 months ago, she had her wedding, the official one. So they all came. Unfortunately, all her friends who are the Indians, their fathers and mothers said, absolutely no, they're killing all of us. If you go, they'll slaughter you. So they're all in this bubble of, misinformation that I personally I requested, but nobody would listen because they're in that fear, they're in this fear zone that such a misinformation, such hype, they've done that they're so scared of even putting a step in Bangladesh. It's so bad there. So we from the alliance, when Farhana and I started talking about putting this thing together, and it's come whatever it has by the sheer strength of our friends who are also working with us, together. We are now good, quite a few people who are doing. So our one agenda is that we will only speak the truth. We will speak the truth. There won't be any lies. If the lie even, embarrasses us, so be it. We have to speak the truth so that bit by bit we can, we can break that iceberg that they've created around, we want to really do that. So, Farhana, then you would like to take that last question, and then
Yeah.
we'll invite Trishan to, for the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shafiq Bhai, for all the details. And to just tie it to the last question that a lot of people were also interested in, it's linked to what you just said. So the United Nations Human Rights Commission report that came out just last month, recently, right? It documented the human rights abuses that happened during the July-August revolution. And despite that, there's still a lot of discounting of that. Rather, there's that, kind of overbloating of the misinformation rather than the ground truth. So I think the strategy of being transparent, of sharing information is really important. And I think we need to carry that forward. And I really appreciate the fact that the United Nations did a thorough investigation and released the report. But we know that the former regime is not appreciative of it because the report is critical of their actions. And then that former regime is also working with India to destabilize Bangladesh with the hope that the former regime can return. But they're actually harming the country in the process, right? And I think
So,
this is something they're not realizing. But I think we need to pay attention to the UN report. And linked to that, the question was, the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, is visiting Bangladesh in March. So do you think some of these will also be discussed? And what does this mean for Bangladesh, his visit, the UN Secretary General?
I think it means a lot. I think we are, we are holding we were one of the co-organizer of the international conference on Rohingya, later to be held later this year, and there will be a lot of discussions on this issue, and even human rights reports. Obviously, I think hammered the last nail into the previous regime's copying. That is quite clear because it's a very small 127-page report, and but it's a scathing indictment of Hasina's rule, like the last 2 months of her rule. And I don't think the dictatorship can it's can discount this report or say that this report is motivated. It's a master stroke of Professor Yunus when he came to power, and he wanted these atrocities to be investigated by independent international organization. That's why he invited Volker Turk and his team to investigate it. And we said we are not going to meddle our hands here. We are not going to do influence anything. And they did this job, and it's you have to read it and how they are saying that what they have said about Hasina, how she ordered the killing of these protesters and hiding their bodies. It's loud and clear. And you know what? Some of the what we learned is that many of their information actually came from Aumi League guys. They are the ones saying that this is what happened, what Hasina has done. This is very well documented. So they cannot say that, okay, this is something very controversial. There is no way they can say it. And they want to talk about it, the more people will read it and find that what this report is all about. It's what we have to do. I think we need a lot of international conferences on this report, maybe something in New York or Washington or something in Dhaka. We are inviting some of the independent think tanks to hold some debates, hold some seminars, or hold some speaking sessions on this issue. It's like a more it get, and also all the international or all the Western powers, all the international organizations, they have read it. There is no way Sheikh Hasina can see a political future after this report. It's impossible. It's like she's over.
So do you think the Secretary General's visit is very, it's crucial, right? Although the discussion will be about the Rohingya refugees that Bangladesh hosts. They fled their homeland of Myanmar, which was formerly called Burma. So the Secretary General's visit will primarily talk about Rohingya, but hopefully also about the situation in Bangladesh and the future of Bangladesh.
Obviously, we have to this report will be discussed, I'm sure.
Thank you. Kausar, back to you.
Okay, so Shafiq Bhai, if you can just, that's the end of our Q&A right now. And I would like to invite Trish, and if you could just watch her presentation, and then if you have some time, we will discuss about that with, the four of us could discuss about that. Because to us, this hits, directly at home. So Trish, please start.
All right, just going to do a quick sound check. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so today we are going to cover the New Hampshire Resolution 11. So what Farhan Appa and Kausar Bhai alluded to earlier, there is a resolution that has recently passed the lower chamber, meaning the New Hampshire House of Representatives recently. And it's specifically about Bangladesh and around allegations of so-called persecution of minorities that are state-sponsored in nature. The resolution also contains some other really serious misinformation, which we will dive into shortly. But before I start this presentation, I just want to make sure that we are all primed on what are the facts that we are working back from, right? So whenever we think about misinformation, it's always good to know, it's always important to know what is the truth, right? And what are the mistruths that we are fighting back against, right? So we're going to start this presentation with 3 facts. Fact 1, the July and August Revolution was a people's revolution. It was not a staged coup, and it was not an Islamic fundamentalist movement. So that's fact 1. Fact 2, communal violence. In August 2024, there were incidents of violence against minority communities, but we know for a fact that these were primarily politically motivated. And no matter what, whether politically motivated or communal in nature, they are indeed regrettable. However, the fact is that there is or was no genocide of minorities. There was no state-sponsored ethnic cleansing and persecution. So those are core facts. And final fact is the elections of 2024 in January and in 2018 are not considered free nor fair. They're not considered free nor fair by Bangladeshis and also by international monitoring entities, including the US State Department. So when we recognize that these are the core facts, we then can discuss what are the issues we have with NH Res 11. Next slide, please. So the New Hampshire HR 11, what is it? So in the US, the way that policy gets made or the way that state government functions is it's sort of a copy of how things operate at the national, AKA the federal level. So at the federal level, you have the US House of Representatives, you have the Senate. At the state level, you have a copy of this. Each state typically has a legislature, and in the legislature, they have a lower chamber known as the House of Representatives, and they have an upper chamber known as the Senate. And typically, when legislation or bills or resolutions get introduced, they get introduced into the lower house, they get voted on. They then go into what we call committee review, which is more of a deep dive into the facts or the information contained within the legislation. Once it goes into committee, it then goes for a vote to the Senate. And that's generally how the process of legislations and resolution works. So in New Hampshire, at the state level, we saw recently in January a bill, and in this case, I'm going to use the words bill and resolution in the same context. A bill was introduced, and the bill was titled, Urging the United States Government to Investigate Allegations of Abuse of Minorities, especially Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, and other religious minorities by the interim government of Bangladesh. So as you can see, this is starting to already be in conflict with some of the facts that we reviewed earlier, right? Who are the sponsors? The sponsors meaning the people who drafted the resolution, the main person who drafted it, and who are the people who sort of put their weight behind this resolution as it was introduced into the House of Representatives in New Hampshire. So the lead sponsor of this resolution was Bangladeshi origin Representative Abul Khan and his 7 other colleagues. You'll notice here that beside each of these names, I use the word R, which means that they're Republican. Now, that in itself is not an issue. We have seen and we believe that both Republican and Democratic administrations in the US government have historically been very Bangladesh friendly, and we truly appreciate that. So that in itself is not an issue. But what is the issue here is when bills and legislation get introduced, they can either be single party or they can be bipartisan, meaning they're supported by people from both Republican and Democratic parties. So if you can see that there is an R beside the name of each of these sponsors, meaning that it's a uniparty resolution. There is no bipartisan support in terms of the sponsors of this resolution. And where exactly is this resolution? What's the status? So as we said, the resolution passed the lower chamber, meaning the House of Representatives. It passed on February 13th. It is currently under committee review. The committee that is reviewing this resolution is called the Federal Relations and Veteran Affairs Committee. And they're going to be doing this until March 20th, after which it will be sent to the New Hampshire Senate to be voted on. Once voted on, we'll talk about what happens. But the key takeaway here is that we still have time to make our voices heard about our issues and our concerns with this resolution. The time is now, the time is there, and we must act. Our citizen advocacy is going to be very important. And this is what we will cover in more detail. So next slide, please. So what exactly does the bill contain? Why do we have issues with it, right? So here are some snapshots that we've pulled from the bill. So first issue, if you look over here, it says that whereas the election of January 7th, 2024 caused the peaceful country of Bangladesh to elect a peaceful government. So that is in conflict with one of the facts that we reviewed earlier. Second issue, whereas that government was overthrown by a so-called student uprising supported by Islamic fundamentalists that is hostile to religious minorities. That is again in conflict with a core fact that we reviewed earlier. Whereas Mohammed Yunus, the current leader of Bangladesh, has attempted to erase the history of Bangabandhu by canceling national holidays such as the Father of the Nation's birthday and removing plaques and renaming institutions that were placed or named in his honor. So again, one, not only is that in conflict with fact, but it is also very troubling that a country, the US, will have such a problem with a sovereign nation deciding to hold what national holiday it wants to, deciding to rename or name its national institutions and its plaques the way it wants to. And then on top of that, we know that a lot of these renamings of institutions were done so that we could name them after July martyrs. What's so problematic about that, right? So again, this in itself is not only problematic, but it's also in conflict with facts. And then finally, another snapshot is, whereas there have been extrajudicial killings of citizens who have either spoken out against Yunus government or who were members of the previous government, including members of Awami League and including the killing of police officers, etc. Right? Again, this sort of comes into conflict with some of the facts that we reviewed earlier. The narrative that this clause tells you is that there's some sort of state-sponsored behavior in nature that is against the police force, that is against the citizens of Bangladesh, and that is sanctioned by the Yunus government. And again, this is not factual, right? So now that we know what are some of the contents that is really problematic about this bill, let's do a further deep dive. Next slide, please. So what exactly happens when this bill, if this bill passes the New Hampshire Senate, right? So it's going to be sent to the Senate for a vote, probably around March 20th. Some of us are looking out for when exactly the vote is going to be scheduled, and we will communicate that. But if it passes the New Hampshire Senate, it asks for a copy of this resolution to be sent to members of the New Hampshire congressional delegation. And so those are basically people who represent New Hampshire at the federal level. So that includes Democratic Senator Jean Shaheen, who is currently, by the way, the most senior member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Previously held by Dick Durbin, who is a wonderful friend of Bangladesh. It also includes Maggie Hassan, Chris Pappas, who's a representative, and Maggie Goodlander, who's a representative. A copy will be sent to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to President Donald J. Trump, and to the White House press office, right? So basically, it's asking for these concerns, if voted favorably by the Senate, to then be continued and sent to all these sort of at the federal level for further investigation, right? Next slide, please. So zooming in, we talked about how the lead sponsor of the bill is New Hampshire State Representative Abul Khan. What do we know about him? And again, the Bangladesh-US alliance is very focused on facts. We're not interested in sharing any allegations. We're just communicating the facts here. And so what do we know about Abul Khan based on publicly available information? He's been elected 4 times as a New Hampshire representative for the district of Seabrook and Hampton Falls, which has a population of about 10,000 people. He is up for re-election in 2026. He was born in Pandaria Upazila of Pirojpur district. He was enrolled for a period of time in Dhaka University, but we're not able to verify his graduation date. Next slide, please. Here's some information about Abu Khan. So the first two pictures on the very far left, actually we'll start with the first picture on the very far right. On the far right, you're seeing a picture of a group of people holding three flags, the Awami League flag, the Bangladesh flag, and the US flag. And these are people who are holding up these pictures on the day that HR 11 passed the New Hampshire House of Representatives. The day that it passed the House, these flags were being held up by these Bangladeshis. On the left side, you're seeing the same subset of those people. So about 3 to 4 people who are on the picture on the right are also on the picture of the left. These are the people appearing with Representative Abu Khan on New Hampshire local television WMUR 9 after it was passed. Let's look at the picture on the bottom left. Here's a picture of Representative Abu Khan earlier this month, appearing with co-sponsor of HR 11, Doug Thomas, where he's talking about the repeal of UN peacekeeping troops from Bangladesh based on allegations of minority persecution, right? And on the very far bottom right, here's another picture of Representative Abu Khan at a cultural event some time ago with the same subset of the people who are holding up the Awami League flag in the picture of the top. We're not able to verify the date of this picture, but certain things are starting to become clear. Abu Khan has friends in the Awami League, right? And we're not making allegations here. We're simply sharing with you publicly available information. And this sort of gives you a little bit of a picture on where maybe Representative Abu Khan stands on certain topics, especially with respect to Bangladesh Awami League. Next slide, please. So what is the fallout of something like this passing in the New Hampshire House of Representatives and potentially passing in the Senate? We'll talk about a few fallouts and one implication. Fallout 1, reputational damage and negative media coverage. So as soon as HR 11 was passed, WMUR 9, which is a local television channel in New Hampshire, picked it up. And if you can see from the first picture, they had a video where Rep Abu Khan is talking and he's saying, hey, US taxpayers send money to Bangladesh. We're really concerned about these allegations of religious minorities. So Bangladesh should be investigated, right? Now, the thing is, when a local news channel picks these up, these are typically then rebroadcasted by their holding companies. So in the case of WMUR, it is owned by ABC, which is a national broadcaster. So anything that's covered locally is then rebroadcasted nationally. And then these are then picked up by news aggregators like Yahoo News. So you can see from these pictures, you have WMUR, a local channel, publishing this news, and then that gets repropagated by ABC and by news aggregators like Yahoo News. So the key call out here is that what starts locally is then disseminated globally across millions of viewers, right? And obviously, as Shafiq Bhai mentioned earlier, we already have seen media outlets from India cover these at length. Example, the Economic Times with the headline, New Hampshire House urges Donald Trump to act against Dhaka over rights, right? So there's a lot of narrative spinning that we're seeing here. So that's Fallout 1. Fallout 2, next slide, please. Next slide is, it sets a precedence for US policies. And what do we mean by that? When you have a vacuum in the Bangladesh government's engagement with US policymakers, it allows narratives from the Bangladesh-US Awami League and allied US-based lobbyists to bridge the gap with misinformation. So what are some examples? On the very left picture, you're seeing a picture of Rep. Raja Krishnamurthy, who on January 7th this year went at the US House of Representatives, and he made claims that the 1971 war was a genocide of primarily Hindus, and that quote unquote genocide has continued on this day. And he's urging the US government, the US House of Representatives and Senate to investigate the government of Bangladesh for its genocide and persecution of Hindus, right? In the second example, you're seeing Representative Sri Thanedar, who's a Democrat from Michigan, going on the House floor in December, so a few months ago, where he's talking about how Chinmoy Dash was a priest that was arrested and his lawyer was murdered by members of the UNO's government, right? And he's also saying that this is an example of minority persecution and that it's the time for the US to use levers such as humanitarian aid and economic sanctions in order to bring these atrocities to justice. And then finally, on the far right, you're seeing Neeraj Antani, who is a Ohio state representative, a former Ohio state representative, who went on the Ohio House floor and said something similar, that as Bangladesh chaos deepens, attacks on Hindu mandirs, threats on Hindus and Christians continue. And we must recognize that this horror is continuing, right? So it's already starting to bubble up in terms of how politicians communicate about Bangladesh at the federal level and at the state level. Next slide. Fallout 3. And so once you have these narratives that are being set by politicians, right, and communicated in state and federal houses, state and federal chambers, it starts providing validity to other misinformation campaigns in the US. So here's an example of a set of billboards that have been set up outside San Francisco Airport. It's called the hashtag #AskYunusWhy campaign. And as you can see, it alternates between pictures of Hindu monks arrested in Bangladesh with a picture of Chinmoy Das, and then another slogan that says Hindus, Buddhists, Christians living in fear in Bangladesh, AskYunusWhy.com. This specific campaign is currently running in San Francisco, and it's been co-sponsored by the United Hindu Council and Hindu American Foundation. Next slide, please. So implication. The reason why we bring this topic up is because not only is there time left to act in New Hampshire, but we also want to give you the tools to identify patterns that may happen in other state levels. From our research, we have reason to believe that the next state where this might happen is Michigan. This is primarily speculation, but it's based on specific insights that we've uncovered. We know that Michigan has a sizable Bangladeshi population. We know that Michigan has influential Awami League affiliated figures, such as Mohammed Rabbi Alam, who are also connected with local Michigan politicians. For instance, Rabbi Alam ran for Michigan for Michigan Senate in 2022, and he's also currently president of the Bangabandhu Commission of the US. And then finally, we know that Michigan also is where representatives like Sri Thanedar, who was the representative that we talked about earlier, who's calling for sanctions against Bangladesh. He's also from Michigan. And there are allegations of him being sympathetic to BJP, to RSS. And so for a number of reasons, as summarized here, we think Michigan might be next. But again, we're giving you the tools to identify if this is happening at other state levels or if it ever happens at other state levels. Next slide. So what can you do, really? If you are a New Hampshire resident, you have the power to engage at the state and the federal level, email people, call people, follow up, go to hearings, engage and re-engage. Who specifically with? Our recommendations are call, email, contact the New Hampshire state representatives, including the resolution sponsors and the 41 reps that voted against the resolution. Contact the state senators. They're the people who need to know that this resolution coming their way is completely filled with mistruths. Contact the members of the New Hampshire Federal Relations and Veteran Affairs Committee who are reviewing this resolution until March 20th. Contact the New Hampshire Speaker of the House, Sherman Packard. Contact the New Hampshire Republican Party leadership, Jim McKeown and Holly Novoletsky. Abul Khan is from the New Hampshire Republican Party, and the Republican Party should know what one of their representatives has been up to. And contact the New Hampshire Congressional Delegation leadership, Jean Shaheen, Maggie Hassan, Maggie Goodlander, Chris Pappas. So what if you're not a New Hampshire resident? You can still contact all of the people above. From the Bangladeshi American Alliance, we've put together a list of contact emails, and we've put together an email template that you can use, and you can simply copy, paste, and press send. And this will start communicating your concerns to the above people. And then on top of that, not only can you as an American citizen or as a concerned person contact these people, you can also add your own US Congress representatives and senators. So the power rests with you to advocate and re-engage and engage these people. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so what are we, the Bangladesh-US Alliance, doing? We're sharing this information with the interim government. We're making them know that this is happening in the US, and the interim government should engage with US policymakers to share their concerns about this resolution. We conducted a deep dive today, and we're also conducting outreach in DC and working to engage the Bangladesh consulate to also make our concerns heard. How can we help you? We can provide research and writing support. So if there are specific representatives that you want to email, that you want to communicate your concerns to, and you need tools in order to summarize these things succinctly, we can help you with the research, we can help you with the writing. We can help amplify your voice across our various platforms and across our network. And we can connect you with other networks. Remember, we're all one team, we're all advocates. Be inspired, act now.